We keep hearing about a male loneliness epidemic, but what if the real culprit isn't just a lack of friends, but a set of deeply ingrained stories men have been told their entire lives? Stories that, while meant to make them strong, are actually cutting them off from the very connections that they crave and need. The data shows that men aren't necessarily lonelier, but they are more disconnected, with fewer close confidants and far less emotional support. So today I'm going to trace that disconnection back to its source. Four very powerful, very insidious cultural myths. These myths don't just describe male loneliness, they actively build and maintain it. And by naming them, we can start to interrupt their influence. With me, I've got Rachel Overvoll, one of the coaches on the team at Modern Intimacy. Rachel recently wrote a blog called Male Loneliness Epidemic. What is it and what can we do about it? If you'd like to read that blog, you can check it out. It's down in the notes below. So let's get started with the first myth.
Yeah, because it's highly individualistic, right? Like it's all focused on me, not focused on the we. So it cuts men off from relationships with other men, but also with, I mentioned this later in the article, like the importance of mentoring young boys. It cuts them off from that type of community. It cuts them off from community with themselves and understanding their own inner world. When I feel like I have to solve everything on my own, that's a really lonely life to live, and a really tiring one as well. It's exhausting to feel that you're living and doing everything on your own all the time and that you can only survive with yourself.
Yeah, it really is. I love that you brought in that fatigue because it is exhausting. And I think a lot of men feel so trapped in this double bind of, I have to do everything myself, I have to be okay, so I won't ask for help, I won't lend it, I won't reach out. But then also the sort of silence of that loneliness creates such a strain on their nervous system. And it can become something that feels so draining and, yeah, fatiguing because there's a lot of self-protection that happens in that space if you're the one who has to do it all by yourself all the time.
I think in some ways too, vulnerability is a risk, and it's important to mention that as well, because there's this fear then of like being seen as weak. If I show that I don't know everything, then I'm not a, in big air quotes, a real man, or I'm not a competent man, or there's a man that's better than me. It also feeds a lot into dominance culture, right? If I'm a great man or a good man, or I am dominant above other people, and it means I'm better, I have more competency. And vulnerability is not about competency at all. It's about who am I really and what am I really feeling right now, which might be incompetent in the moment. I might have no idea what I'm doing. And when we're always operating from a level where you're performing dominance instead of vulnerability, what you're really doing is getting on a hierarchy scale. And within hierarchy, we can't have equity, we can't have equality, we also can't have true connection. Hierarchy doesn't allow for connection. So within this lack of vulnerability, we then climb this dominance ladder. The dominance ladder doesn't allow for connection or love in your partnerships either. It really doesn't allow for true love and connection.
Yeah, I really appreciate the way you frame that because I think when men are put in this position where they have to perform competency and they have to know what to do all the time, vulnerability is a liability, it does position people in a self-protective place because they're in competition with others around them. And being in competition is a really difficult place to feel connection and support in, right? Because the other person is trying to literally win and get one over on you. So I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's lack of permission and also lack of examples. In order for us to step into vulnerability or step into connection, we have to see examples of it. If we haven't seen it with our families growing up or within our friend circles, and then we're in adulthood, Like, that is a hard lesson to learn. And, I really think about this as like parallel play too. It's like we're playing next to each other. It's like we're both sitting on the couch on our phones. It's parallel play. Or we're both golfing next to each other. Or we're both watching the football game next to each other, but we're not connected. Nothing about it. I'm not asking you, like, how's your relationship? How are you feeling? What's going on at work? I know you had that hard project. Like, men, I think a lot of times don't ask those questions because, number one, they don't know how, because they haven't been given situations or examples where it's shown them how. And then number two, they don't know how to handle the other person's answer. And I think that one comes even in bigger of, like, say I do ask my friend, hey, I know you were working on that project and that was really hard. Like, how's it going? And they're like, yeah, I almost got fired. And, like, I don't know how to answer. And so I think a lot of times men, because they don't have as much access to vulnerability as women, what then happens is it's not so much that they're scared to ask the question, is that they're scared of how to respond when their friend might be honest with them.
That's such a good point, and it really parlays well into myth number 4, which is that the myth that emotional work is not a man's responsibility. Now, I know a lot of men will actually say that's not true, right? They don't consciously believe that, and that's great. And for a lot of men, the conditioning of becoming a man was such that they received a lot of direct messages and many indirect messages that really support that myth. So they may not have had the kind of skills training around how to feel and how to show empathy and how to really do that kind of emotional labor that is what really holds relationships together in a lot of ways. The myth, this idea that the managing the emotional climate of a relationship and maintaining social connections, expressing care, are primarily feminine domains, can lead men to outsource their social and emotional worlds, leaving them really dependent on the women around them for that, and underskilled in how to hold that labor, take on that labor in a really equitable way. And so this myth that emotional work is feminine work is really insidious because it can make men passive passengers in their own relational lives.
They flounder a lot. They have a
do.
really hard
Yeah.
time, right? And there's like a very old video series, I think it's from the 90s, where this reporter was asking women and men, like, who's your best friend? And repeatedly every woman was like, my neighbor Sue or Jan, and every single man was like, my wife. And not
Mm,
any woman said their husband. And I think it's really interesting, right? Like, women, because we've been socialized in a different way, have been taught to like build really vast communities from a young age, have been given a lot of tools to do that. Men have not. And so we all need deep connection. We all want, even if it's not explicit, there's a deep desire in us to have intimate connection and vulnerability. But if, as a man, the only place you're allowed to have that is with your female partner, that's a really limiting community, right? And then that causes you to exacerbate that relationship, that your partner might feel resentment of, like, well, yeah, we're hanging out with our friends all the time, but I'm the only one coordinating it. Like, I'm the only one in the group chat that's texting back and saying, yes, we'll be there at 7:30 and this is what we're bringing. Or you're coming to me with all of your emotional distress, and and then you don't have room for me to hold mine, right? And so it can become a really one-sided emotional relationship too. And then I see a lot of women that then grow resentment towards their partners over it. And then in the aftermath of a breakup or a divorce, I see constantly, like, women feel this exhale of like, oh my gosh, I have so much time to myself. I'm going to learn all these activities. I'm going to do all these things. And I see men really struggle of feeling like they don't have anyone to talk to, feeling like they don't have any deep connections, feeling really lonely, unsure of who to reach out to, and they feel super isolated in that. Another reason that why community is so important is because it puts us in a place where we have more resources, so our partner doesn't have to be our everything. That if and when things happen, because every relationship will end, whether by choice or not, we have people around us that can support us, and we're not alone. We have people that can pick up and say, I've got you, I'm going to take you out to dinner, or I'm going to pick up the kids this weekend and take them to the soccer game. We need that community. We can't be reliant on one person.
It's so true, and I think it really helps to understand some of the criticism around some of like popular influencers' proposed solutions to the male loneliness epidemic online, because a lot of the proposed solutions, usually proposed by men, are for men to find a female partner or rely more on their female partner. And so, this idea that women absorb this part of the relationship and magically make it better for men
Mm-hmm.
does put a really significant strain on everybody in that relationship, because it ends up not being an equitable relationship, and it creates this dependence, as you named it, and a resentment, I think, in both directions.
Yeah.
I often work with men who feel tremendous resentment toward their female partners because what seems difficult for him seems effortless for her in terms of relational growth and depth, and she's often asking for more and he doesn't know how to give more. He doesn't know what to do, and
Mm-hmm.
this sort of impasse can cause strain on the relationship. It can reduce desire for one or both partners. It isn't the solution, right? I think one of the things that I would love to see is that men actually reach out to other men and build more community that doesn't focus on sports and doesn't
Mm-hmm.
focus on their relationships with women or the subjugation or degradation of women. A lot of men do bond through talking about their conquests of women or their sexual proximity to women. And
Mm-hmm.
I can understand why that might be an easy building block, but it doesn't really foment the kind of depth in relational care that absolves loneliness. It's more of that competition disguised as bonding.
Connection and community than men. And so I think that busting that first myth of that men are disproportionately lonely is a huge piece to
Mm-hmm.
recognize first.
Mm-hmm.
And then going into like how do we create more community and how do we move out of this feeling of loneliness. I think one of the big things that men could do that would be so beneficial for our society as a whole is get more involved with mentoring young men, get more involved with, and if you, that could be your nephew, that could be your neighbor's kid, that could be the Boys and Girls Club, that could be volunteering at a local nonprofit. There's a lot of ways to do it, but get involved with the younger generation. Obviously, I would say go to therapy, go to coaching, go somewhere where you can practice vulnerability. Maybe that's
Yeah.
even a group setting. I think group therapy can be really great for men in that way because they can practice with other men.
My favorite recommendations for men, because it's one thing to read a book and learn a skill, but it's another thing to really put it into practice. So having that space where you're all there for the same thing and you're committed to non-judgment as you each practice these new
Mm-hmm.
skills can be such a great support for men.
Absolutely. And if you're in partnership, be honest with your partner about, hey, I'm realizing that I feel really lonely and I don't do a great job with vulnerability. I'm really buttoned up, or I don't do a good job outsourcing my connections in other ways, and I feel really reliant on you, and I recognize the weight that that puts on us. I want to do better. Can you help me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what can we do together so we can support each other? And not in a reliance on your partner, but in an interdependence way. We can help each other in relationships, and we should.
Yeah, I love that. Well,
Mm-hmm.
thank you, Rachel. And anyone listening, if this resonates for you, feel free to subscribe, forward it to someone you think might benefit from it. And yeah, we'll see you next time.